Fortunately, I came from a family where my grandpa was considered to be rich. He was a part of a union, and the union propelled him from a guy who did not even have a high school diploma into a position where he bought the house that he died in for about $5,000 in cash, which would probably today, be $100,000 home. In 1931, it was a revolutionary piece of legislation that member of the House, Bacon, and a member of the Senate, Davis, were able to get this legislation through to make it to the president's desk. Davis-Bacon was simply a piece of legislation that required that people be paid decently.
One of my legislative priorities is regional growth, rebuilding St. Louis. And we're talking about our schools, we're talking about our roads, we're talking about our bridges. Those obviously should be union construction jobs. And we want to make certain that folks have what's considered a prevailing wage, that they're getting paid a fair local wage. The surest and smartest way to drive regional growth is to build inside out. Think about someone who lives in a community and they're a skilled tradesman and they have to go somewhere else for work. Well, guess what? They're taking their dollars, sometimes their families, and they're investing in spending those dollars in other communities. Or we can invest in the folks that are here who know these communities, who are starting small businesses. If you're making a prevailing, fair, local wage, and you can take care of your family, you're making an investment in schools, you're making an investment in public safety, you're making an investment in small businesses that are also the lifeline and lifeblood of our economy. And that builds upon itself in the sense of you give other folks from the outside incentive to come in and invest as well.
Davis-Bacon has always been and will continue to be more than minimum wage. It's trying to keep up with the middle-class standard of living.
So interestingly enough, growing up as a kid in the 80s, both of my parents worked for a union. Neither one was exactly building trades, but union just the same, right? So my dad was a Teamster for 35 years. My mom was a member for years and years of the Nashville Musicians Union. And it afforded, honestly, a pretty good life as a child. We talk all the time about that headline-grabbing right to work, right? Which I'm a firm believer that Missourians struck that down, even in my very red district. Overwhelmingly, 70+% voted against it. It's not the only issue. An issue that's important to me is prevailing wage in the bidding process. So for example, if the laborers are paying retirement, they're paying health insurance, and they bid a job at a certain number, if a non-labor business bids that same job and it comes in cheaper, well, keep in mind, they may not be paying health insurance. They may not be paying retirement. And I think that bid process isn't fair. If I'm going to bid at a certain price and I'm giving health insurance and retirement, anybody else bidding it also has to offer those same exact things. Otherwise, it's not apples to apples.
We're in a situation right now where many of the things that made this country into what it is are being tested. We have power in labor unions because men and women who are in these unions consider themselves a part of a brotherhood or a sisterhood. In other words, it's not just 3,000 workers at an automobile manufacturing plant with no connections with each other. They all are connected, and because of that number, 3,000, they also have power. The larger the number, the greater the power.